Welcome back to the Defuse Discuss Podcast. Today I am joined by CataclysmGaming's CEO and co-founder Jeff, and we're going to keep you guys updated on the recent Valorant Rostermania, covering the latest rumors and changes in Valorant esports, and a couple surprise little bonus topics, I'm sure.
All right, guys, what's up? Yes, I'm Jeff. I've been away working with our Valorant team, getting back to my own coaching lifestyle, but I'm super excited to be back on the podcast. So yeah, I mean, let's dive into it, man. Let's get started, bro.
Let's get it going. I just want some coaching on maybe some Lego builds that maybe you've got something like that for me, because I don't know, my big hands and those little tiny Legos, I just can't do it.
That's got to be the hardest part of it too. And you got like just the smallest pieces in the world, and you're just trying to get them to fit together, and then one of them just pops off. There's so many nightmares, but
it actually gives me anxiety when I try to hold them. It's horrible.
Well, we could work on that in the future then.
I guess.
Not exactly my specialization, anything that I've had to do before, but always down to learn about new stuff, I suppose.
Why not? So for our first segment of today's podcast, we're going to go into basically gamer terms. And our first gamer term is going to be POG. And now if you had to describe POG to someone who wasn't in the gaming atmosphere, what would you say? How would you describe POG to them?
Well, POG stands for play of game, right? So,
does it really?
You know, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. POG stands for play of the game. So if something is POG, then it's really hype and really cool. But gamer slang is kind of this thing where it's one word can mean many things. I think we've all used POG as just a way of describing general approval for anything from the incredibly awesome to the hilariously mundane. Be like, that ice cream was pretty POG, huh? I'd be like, yeah, it was. It's all we've said there is that it was good ice cream, you know. It's just, but yeah, it's a really positive thing always, though. If something's POG, it's never a negative.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely a term that's calmed down a little bit in usage. You know, we use it for just about everything. I feel like, you know,
that's true.
Any good moment in your day, anything that brightens you up a little bit is POG. You know, being on the podcast with Jeff, POG. Absolutely. You know, but it's not like a play of the game. There's no game happening here.
Hey, you know, it's the game of life. It's the game of life. And we're playing it, bro. Playing it as best we can with loaded dice and every other trick that we can pull out of our sleeves.
Definitely. I think maybe next episode we'll get a guest to come on that's not in the gaming sphere at all and ask them what they think of POG.
And that would be pretty interesting.
That would be interesting. We'd have to, I don't know.
Mom, man.
do you know any non-gamer friends?
God, honestly, man, at this point, I don't think I do. I'm gonna be real. Like, I actually think that I've managed in my life, you know, other than relatives, my circle is kind of just turned into what I care about, and that's this, man. That's esports. That's the whole online environment, the interaction, the competition, you know. It reminds me of when I played soccer competitively and that same kind of shared pain. But without all of the having to organize outdoor venues and referees and all, you know, it's so much easier to get online and play a game with your friends and spend that time together. And so yeah, I mean, my whole social circle, I think at this point, is pretty much just esports.
We'll have to do some heavy recruiting then. I don't know, maybe I could get my roommates in. I mean, they know about Fortnite, but that's about it.
I don't even know if that counts, because what I've found too with gaming and esports, right, is that there's a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, like Call of Duty, right? Like, I played Call of Duty, you know, when I was growing up, and I'm like, bet you did, bro. I bet you did. I bet your console also didn't connect to the internet. And if it did, it was local area, not online.
Come on, I was in Modern Warfare 2 lobbies when I was like 6,
Yeah,
7. Come
you
on.
were, but the people I'm talking about were playing Call of Duty 2.
Oh God, fair.
You know,
Fair.
it's like they know what gaming is, but they don't know what gaming is, and I think that that's something that, I mean, I personally would like to change because I think a lot of people have the wrong mindset about what gaming is. You know, they're still stuck in that 2000s. Oh my God, it's some kid raging at his TV screen, throwing controllers, and then people typing the N-word at each other on a gamepad. Because that's everybody's early 2000s Call of Duty experience. But, there's this whole world of competitive games where people show up and they compete and they really pour their heart and soul into it the same way that any other passionate person would. And, you get a lot of teamwork and a lot of social skills and a lot of just good life skills out of that kind of stuff. So, and then there's this echelon of people who take the game seriously, right? Like, I mean, we've both loaded up plenty of games where we go up and we play and we're there to have fun, but there's a whole bunch of people who play the game because they want to be really good and they want to, take that to something that they can use for the rest of their life. And that's an awesome thing, but just because you're aware of what it is to play Fortnite, just because you play Fortnite doesn't mean that you've ever experienced anything close to like a professional tournament, right? I mean, it's just a totally different gameplay experience. There's a different meta, there's a different caliber of player and communication and organization to the game that you just don't experience every time you load up a random game online.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And on your note of people thinking that they know what gaming is and what it is now, it's a wild thing because I work at a restaurant and I introduce myself and they ask me about my life and what I do and I tell them that I run this esports organization, and let me tell you, every time I say those words, esports organization, just a cluelessness draped over. So what is that? What does that mean? It's like, all right, well, how can I explain this to you in a manner where you'll actually respect what I'm trying to do? And how I can actually portray it as a real legitimate business versus me just playing video games and wasting my time, essentially. It gets really complicated trying to explain to people. So it would be challenging. We'd have to really find someone with an open mind to try to understand what POG means, but I'm just scared, because POG has other meanings outside of the gaming world. So it's just the spelling. Would have to figure it out.
POG, ladies and gentlemen, write it down.
Understand.
POG.
Please.
POG.
Horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Maybe even poggers.
Poggers, maybe.
But
I think that would make it better for us. Well, if you're not a gamer and you're running into our podcast, please feel free to describe what you think POG means in the comments. Maybe we'll get a little comment going there with a little graphic of POG, and just so that way we can define some terms and set some limits on that as well.
Setting the limits is more important, I think, than defining the terms. But
besides,
it will be comment moderation.
Besides any memes and besides any POGs, there's a lot of things happening in the gaming world right now, and there's a lot for us to take note of. One of the biggest things that's been catching my eye recently is the Summer Series of Gamers 8 for 2023, $45 million total. I mean,
I got to tune into a lot of that. I mean, I have I'm unashamed about the esports addiction that I have. It's something that I consume like it's just the most. Can I say crack cocaine on this? Can I just say that? Because I can't seem to get enough of high level competition. I just love watching people push themselves to excel at what they do, no matter what that is. And esports is a great platform for that because it's so easy to continuously do it, right? Like, you can only work out for so long before your body is just done. Trust me, I know. But um, I've seen people play games for days on end. I'm not exaggerating, like literally, maybe not to the peak of their ability, but still. So there's just so much opportunity, and yeah, I mean, Gamers 8, man, when you put up a prize pool like that, I know that, within that, StarCraft 2, right? StarCraft 2 recently had publisher support pulled from all tournaments, so Blizzard was no longer funding any official events, which means all the events now are pure sponsorships or crowdfunding. GSL for StarCraft 2 in Korea has actually got a Patreon, and the crowdfunding was so successful, the community was so supportive that the production company took it from being an online event when they heard that there was no more producer money, right? The developer was no longer sponsoring the event. They took it out of the studio, but the Patreon was so successful that they actually brought it back to the studio the next season because there were clearly so many people who wanted it. And the prize, they actually capped out their awardable prize money, and it rolled over into the next season. And that's happened again for season 3 because there's just so much love and support for that game, right? And at Gamers 8, StarCraft 2 got it's a $400,000 or $500,000 tournament. I can't remember, but it was a larger prize pool than the World Championships, right? It's huge money on the table for StarCraft 2, some of the biggest in a long time. And that was really exciting for a lot of the players, and a lot of them were saying in their interviews that because of that support for the game, they were preparing for it like it was the World Championship. They were placing as much emphasis, if not more, on that event because it was a huge opportunity for them to just basically lock up their finances for the year. And that's one thing that people have to consider. Professional gamers, like, this is their job. They play this because they don't do anything else, and it takes a lot of practice and a lot of hard work and a lot of effort, and
sounds horrible.
they go out there
like
and yeah, it's like you spend 7 days out of your week working your ass off, though, and then you get to the end of the week for a $400 tournament, and that's your money for the week, right? Like, you work all week for $400 if you win your weekly tournament, right? If you win the weekly tournament. And guess what? There's 100 other people who did the exact same thing who were there at that weekly tournament trying to prevent you from winning, So when there's a tournament like what Gamers 8 put on, it's just crazy. Team Spirit for the Dota 2 event as well, for the Riyadh Masters, as it was called. They really showed up, man. They haven't looked that good since they won the international, and that was a $35+ million prize pool. Gamers 8 put up a total of $15 million. It was incredible. It was huge. A lot of the Dota 2 professionals are thinking that it might be bigger than the international is going to be this year. And so they brought all their best stuff, and it was such a great event. Anybody who did not get to see it, go back, watch. Team Liquid versus Talon in the upper bracket was a phenomenal series. One of the best I've ever seen. I was literally jumping out of my chair.
Well, it helps when
so
you're a
hype.
Liquid fan.
It does help, but at the same time, like, people who weren't Liquid fans were jumping out of their chair. It was literally wild, it was literally wild. But yeah, obviously being a Liquid fan, it was very exciting for me seeing them compete and play well in that event. They've competed and played well all year long. I'm just hoping that they can pull it together to get that World Championship that they deserve.
Yeah, well, second place, it's gotta hurt, it's gotta really fuel the fire.
Well, it doesn't hurt as bad as all the other second places they've gotten this year. So they finished second place in every single major. They finished second place in Dream League, and they finished second place in Riyadh Masters, and they got beaten every single time by the same team in all of those events. So Gaming Gladiators won, and Liquid came second place in every event of the year except Riyadh Masters, where Gaming Gladiators ended up getting beat by Liquid in the very beginning of the bracket, right? First round of playoffs, and then got knocked out in the lower bracket by another team. And then Liquid came in second again, man.
Oh, they had to feel so good
just,
after that first win.
right? They had to feel
then,
like they could just do it. And then they get to the end, and yeah, it's just, I don't know, dude. When Team Spirit is on, Team Spirit is crazy good, and that's what I love about esports is you get to see these teams like really flex their stuff and really show out, and kind of display their styles and what makes them special in the game, and it's just really cool to see when that all comes together, you know. And sometimes it's really entertaining to see when that all falls apart, but
yeah, I mean, unfortunately for Team Liquid, I mean, I feel like second place has to hurt a lot. I mean, if you're so close and you can't finish, you know. Oh, that's horrid, horrid. But yeah, just it's a good event to be basically existing in the esports realm. You know, you got to appreciate Gamers 8's influence, and they're, you know, they're dumping a lot of money into this. Obviously, they're getting the viewership that they want in back-to-back years, and we don't know if there's going to be a 2024 Gamers 8, but I imagine if it's successful like it was this year, then they're going to run it back.
oh yeah, dude, the viewership was crazy on some of these events, man. Maybe not the ones that you would expect, right? As like a non-esports enjoyer, you know, somebody who's not super tied into the scene and whatnot. But yeah, some of these numbers that they were doing were absolutely crazy for some of the tournaments. I was really impressed. Really, really impressed.
Yeah, I mean, even just the list of games that they were running events for: Fortnite, Tekken, PUBG, FIFA, obviously Dota, and StarCraft.
Rainbow Six.
Just a ton of different games, getting a lot of different viewership counts for each game. It changed, you know, a little bit. Obviously, some games are more popular than others, but surprisingly for me, their PUBG event totaled out at close to 500,000 peak viewers, which I didn't even know that PUBG was really a thing anymore.
Yeah, right. I thought that ship had come and gone, right? These days all we hear about are Fortnite and Apex Legends, which of course Gamers 8 wasn't able to offer any of the franchised esports opportunities, especially with ESL running a lot of it. ESL obviously has contracts for a ton of these different games. They produce a lot of this different stuff, but you know, we were missing Valorant, League of Legends, Overwatch, and Apex Legends, which are 4 of the biggest esports in the world at the moment. Siege got in there, which is cool. That's a franchised esport that managed to make an appearance, but at the same time, it's like you're missing 4 of the largest esports on the planet, right? And you still put up numbers that good. Hundreds of thousands of viewers for Tekken 6, for Street Fighter, right? Games that are not being as tapped into as they probably should be based on that much viewership.
100%.
I'm going to be real. I've never watched Street Fighter before in my life, but I watched some of the games, and the casting was good. The talent was good. I'm going to tell you this. The production quality of Gamers 8 was higher than any event I have ever seen in my life, with the exception of Overwatch Apex Season 2. That is the only event I have seen with an equivalent level of production. It was so sick. And I think there was something in the air about the event, because let me tell you, the talent that was on the desk and casting the games and doing the interviews, they brought a level that I haven't seen from a lot of them in a long time. And I think it was probably just the excitement of the players, right? Bleeding off onto the support staff. You know, because they get excited about this stuff too. They're there because they love the game. Henry G, famous CSGO caster, when COVID hit, he stopped casting because he was like, I love being in the arena. I love being here in the roar of the fans, the players screaming at each other across the stage. Like, I love that. And that's not a thing right now, and it's not confirmed if we'll ever go back to live events or if we'll always be in online events. And so I'm going to take a step back from casting. And he did, and now we're back to doing things live, and I think that there's been a good proof that, you know, being able to gather a bunch of these passionate individuals together there's a lot of value in that. And yeah, it's just, you can see the difference that it makes in the staff. the casts and the death segments too. When you've got something that's that awesome happening in the realm of esports.
Yeah, 100%. Props to Gamers 8, like we said. I mean, it's excellent what they're really doing here to keep esports alive. Sometimes you wonder how the future of esports is going to look, especially with the corporate franchise roster spots and league spots
that
that it's like what really is going to come of it altogether. But whew, what an event for Gamers 8. $45 million, like we said, total prize pool. That's
no joke,
that's
man.
a lot of cash.
That is no joke.
If only we were able to tap into that.
Yeah, right? Like, bro, if only we could just be there.
I'll take 1%. Like, whatever you got.
I'll take less than 1%. I'll take anything. Anything. Alms for the poor.
Yeah, like we mentioned, unfortunately, Gamers 8 didn't have any Valorant tournaments for us, but after the wrap-up of the VCT, there is a lot of things happening in the Valorant world.
I know. It's kind of wild that Gamers 8 like rolled Rocket League right after the Rocket League World Championships. I feel like that kind of stuffed a lot of the immediate Rostermania that you would normally see. Like NA had a horrible showing at the Rocket League World Championships, but they did okay at Gamers 8. Maybe that stabilized some of the potential roster moves that we could have seen. I don't know. I think that's going to start shaking out here pretty soon for Rocket League, but Valorant didn't have that. Valorant Rostermania is about to be alive and well, or unalive and well, as depending on how you view Rostermania.
Yeah, I mean, fair. It's off to a slow start as of now, but it looks like the headlines of everything is obviously the Guard dropping their entire roster and backing out of any sort of VCT promotion or ascension.
I'm not trying to get us totally canceled, so I won't talk on the Guard as an organization, but it is really sad that those players worked so hard to make that happen and then don't end up locking that slot up.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we'll see what happens with the players. There's a lot of teams that are going to be looking to pick up people, and ideally,
they're
if you're
top, right?
Yeah, I mean, come on, they're the best
You
amateur team, I guess you could say, tier 2 team.
They're league minimum players, right? Like you pay them the league minimum. You don't have to go all crazy for them, and at the same time, you know that they're proven talent. You know how good they are. You've gotten to see it. They would have been your competition. They probably played practice games versus the Guard, honestly, like most of the franchise pro rosters.
I mean, for scrims and all that, especially if you're even on EG's sub team. Yeah, I'm sure that you probably warmed up against teams like the Guard or M80 or Moist Moguls or anything like that. But the Guard would have been your pick.
Mm-hmm.
Just because
100%.
They're the top team,
Yeah.
They run it. But they're not a team anymore. So we'll have to see what happens to their roster as a total here. I'm not sure who's going to pick up who, but we do know that there are some teams with some holes.
That
most
is
notably
true.
NRG, who aren't really sure what's going to happen with their roster. Both FNS and SOM have been moved to inactive, and those are some big pieces for NRG.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one, and I think an unexpected one, too. Everybody that I talked to, which is mostly Valorant players in the Tier 3 scene, were on the same page with me, where they were like, Artis is out, bro. He's just not, he's not a bad player, he's just not what the team needs. And then you see that FNS and SOM are kind of this duo core that have separated themselves from the rest of NRG. I do think that they're the best players on NRG in terms of what they provide. But I have heard a rumor that those two are particularly holding out for a brand new build-around team. That they're specifically like, hey, the two of us want to put together a new team around us. And so they're in tense negotiations with with NRG over that. And so kind of the mindset is, all right, are NRG building off of the other players, or are they building around FNS and SOM? I think that Crashies is an amazing player. I think he's a great Sky player, but if that's all you're keeping and you're losing FNS and SOM, and then it's like, all right, do you keep Victor and Artis, or are you replacing them as well with new players? I mean, are you basically building around Crashies at that? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of conversation there. I think the whole conversation's been made a little weird too by Riot saying, hey, you can't just sponsor the guard, because there is a world where I think NRG are just like, you know what, we're over it with all of you, and they just pick up the guard, full staff and roster, right?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy though. Energy just went on a run, and their roster is pretty solid from top to bottom. If it stays as it was, of course, we don't know what's going to happen.
You say that their exit from World Championship was
okay,
not good. We'll put it that way.
True. But a very competitive team towards the top of NA, very clearly. With FNS and SOM potentially leaving, I mean, I don't know, that drops them down on a lot of power rankings, in my opinion. And, maybe they do pick up the guard, and who knows? They deserve respect too. I mean, Jonah P, Net, they deserve to get signed, but we'll have to wait and see. Energy's it's pretty viable esports org. They're pretty respectable.
Had a long history.
100%. I trust their judgment on some things, but FNS says that it's best for both of them to part ways, so I don't know about that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other consideration, is just like, you need a good environment where everybody is on the same page about what you want, right? And if you try and force that, then you're always going to be proving to the other side that your viewpoint is valid. But if you're already on the same page with like, hey, this is what we see that's good, and this is what we want, then things are just going to be much better, even if maybe it's not the best players or the best roster you could have put together. If that cohesion is there, you're just going to get better results overall, from the top to bottom. Yeah. But yeah, that's one of the looks in NA. All of NA is kind of in a huge upset situation here.
I mean, Tens, potentially only a content creator, not playing on the roster. Yay.
And are Sentinels even relevant without Tens? Like,
they even weren't relevant with him, so
exactly.
Hard to say.
It's not like they're, I don't know what the deal is with Sentinels, but it's like, you would think that they would be well enough off financially to put together a solid roster.
I would just think that they
notoriously
would be
rough management, but
I mean,
Cloud9,
it's crazy because their roster is good. Like, when you look at the players, you would think that their team would be better.
You would expect it to be really good. Zekin is crazy, Marved and Pancata and Saucy are all sick. I mean, I would honestly say that Tens might not even be the star of the roster, and yet, here he is, and yet the roster's not doing anything relevant. They're not at the top. You would expect these guys to be at the top, and they're not. And maybe on an individual level there, but maybe that goes back to the whole cohesion thing, where it's like, okay, look, you've got these Brazilians, you've got these Canadians, you've got this language barrier, perhaps. Maybe they don't all have the same idea of how to play the game. I've seen it a lot in Tier 2. Happens all the time in Tier 2 esports, where a whole bunch of players will individually be like, well, I like these guys, let's just all play together, and then they'll form like this quote-unquote super team of like, who are the best players, but they won't say, oh yeah, well, I really like playing with this guy. They'll say, oh, well, this is the best duelist, or this is the best smokes player, and then they'll put together this super team. Happens in Dota 2 a lot, or at least it used to, not so much anymore. But the super team will form, and then they'll just fall flat, because it's like, you're not a team, you're just really good players.
Yeah, just pieces put together to.
Mm-hmm. And you're not more than the sum of your parts.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a level of teamwork that has to happen. And I mean, honestly, if I'm Tens, why wouldn't I just stream full time? I don't know. It depends on your mindset, I suppose. But
Well, the love of the competition, you know, there's nothing quite like it.
I mean, come on. If you could just turn yourself into Tarek and host streams of the VCT and be live at the Champions and just sit in a couch and watch it and get paid and have thousands of viewers and collect your bag through Twitch and Kick and YouTube. Whew.
Sounds really nice, but, you know, if what you love is to compete, then that's what you love, you know?
Well, they're not
going to be able to stop
so.
that. No, they're not. That's part of the problem.
Yeah, I don't know. But there is also rumors coming out that if Ospas is let go of Loud, that Sentinels is going to look to pick them up as well, or to pick Ospas up.
Now, see, that just sounds like another super team kind of move. You know what I mean?
Well, they're just bringing Loud back together.
Yeah, one
piece at a time.
Agonizingly slow piece at a time. Yeah.
Very slowly. But yeah, that's got to be, the language barrier might be quite a nuisance, and maybe they're trying to adjust and turn their North American roster into mostly LATAM. But who knows? I mean,
I feel like a move like that would reek of desperation, you know? Less of like a, hey, we have a plan and a vision for this organization, and more of a, hey, we're just trying to make sure that we have a good player who sells jerseys on our roster, you know?
Which is very possible. I'm sure that Sentinel jersey sales are pretty high.
Probably stupid high. But then at the same time, it's like you look at the flip side of that. You look at DRX, for example. DRX was Vision first, and then DRX sponsored, and then, you know, they've played together for 3 years. They've had like a more than 5-man roster, which is unusual in esports, but that roster has remained pretty consistent, and there have been a couple of ins and outs as far as whether or not they're going to be running this player or that player in their 5th-man slot, but for the most part, there's been a lot of stability there, and they have climbed from being a team that got absolutely crashed on in the first year of Valorant competition to being one of the best teams in the world at the current state. And they're just so fundamentally strong, so well-rounded, and they don't have any stars. They don't have any crazy players. They don't have anybody who's going to just go off, you know, and yet they're still pulling out all of these wins versus so many teams. It's just because they're fundamentally so well-rounded and so strong, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've already talked about the teamwork and the cohesion that has to exist, especially for teams at this level. That's kind of like the difference. I mean, I don't know. I think Zest is pretty star-worthy, but that's just that's my own bias, and
I would say Mako and Stacks are, but, you know, it's like everybody's going to point at a different player on this team, you know? 100%. Whereas if we're like, who's the best player on Loud? You get 2 guys in that conversation, you know? You get 2 guys in that conversation every time. If everybody's like, who's the best player on NRG? 2 guys in that conversation, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's just the style of play. It's always some star power in NA, of course.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's very common in a lot of regions. I mean, you know, it's one of those things. It's like, in a way, it's a safe bet. You've got a player that you know will deliver if given resources, and so you give them resources, then they deliver. But you know, the same can be said for a well-rounded team where anybody can deliver at any moment. Ultimately, I personally think that S-tier success, like repeat championships, it requires both. It requires both, and you see that out of a team like EG, for example, where, you know, Demon One, Boostio, Calm, they can have crazy games, but that can be said for every one of the players on the roster, you know? It's not like, oh, it's only this one guy who's carrying us. Now, yes, Demon One is the star of the show, but Demon One makes stuff happen. You know, it's not their fault that there's only one guy left to kill by the time Demon One dies. You know, it's like, I'm sorry, you're just not going to get as many numbers because there aren't as many numbers to get. You can't collect them.
Rightfully so. I mean, it adds up, But we'll see what Sentinels decides to do, and obviously, if Aspas leaves Loud, then that leaves Loud with some decisions to make as well about who they're going to pick up, and who in the Brazilian scene is looking strong.
Yeah, no kidding.
And
I
who's
mean,
up
you
and
got to try
coming.
and find somebody that's going to fill those shoes, because they are big shoes to fill in terms of what Aspas provides in the server, right? Cohesion aside, he does show up on game day and he does deliver, and that there's a lot of value in that when you're trying to be a championship level team.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there are rumors saying that it's getting hard to work with Aspas, and Loud denied his ask for a raise, and so that's kind of why these rumors exist as a whole. But we'll see what moves happen here. I mean, it would be very interesting to see Aspas on the Sentinels, but I feel like that just kind of leaves Loud in this big bubble of what do we even do? I mean, I don't even know the next up and coming. I mean, well, maybe actually I do know some, but
Yeah, I know who you're thinking of. But I mean, they lost Pancata and Sassi, and everybody was like, "What are they gonna do?"
yeah, and they still play.
And here they are.
Yeah.
They found players and they developed players as well, right? They didn't just look for whoever's already good and take them. They found people who were not yet peaking, but who had everything that they were looking for, and they turned them into the players that they wanted them to be. I mean, I've been so impressed with Cal and Zine and Les. They really
100%.
just done serious work for this roster. And yeah, there's a lot to be said for just how well Loud has structured their, new team, because it's not the same team. That's the truth. It's not the same team.
Yeah, very different. Very still successful after changes too, though. So I mean, we could say the same thing for NRG. If they lose a Finesse and Som, and the quality of their organization, are they able to keep up the pace? Are they going to be able to recruit new members, maybe from the guard or whatnot, to stay relevant? Loud was able to transition their success into more success. I mean, it wasn't the same success, but
yeah, and it's hard because they were at the top, right? It's not like they were good; they were the best. And
it wasn't close.
Yeah, and so well, we're talking about success. You look at it relatively, then it's like, okay, well, are they successful? No, because they're not where they were then. But are they successful in the sense that there's still a top contending team that has fans supporting them and brings in numbers when it comes to viewership and just content and whatnot? It's like, yeah, they are still successful as an organization. They've stabilized, and then you look at Cloud9, where it's like, well, if they weren't so big that they couldn't fail, bro, I don't know what they would do. They're constantly just up and down on every track, everywhere. If it wasn't for their League of Legends team, I just don't even know if they would they would manage to pull through. Because they dominate North American League of Legends pretty handedly. But when you see an organization like Loud stabilize in a moment when they could have seriously been in danger of financial hardship, right? Because it's a business for them too. It's work for them to show up and train players and secure sponsorships and whatnot. Then you gotta be critical and you gotta be cutthroat, but you also gotta be willing to build things, right? If you're only ever taking things that other people build, success is gonna be hard to maintain.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, I would like to see teams stay together and stick it out a little bit longer. Same kind of ideology that we've implemented into our own team. And, obviously we have some stars, and other teams have stars too, but it's all about
they're different stars in different ways, right? Like
100%.
Some people are stars because they're super supportive, Some people are stars because they kill everything, right? It's just it depends. What is your role in the team? What do you provide? If you have a well-rounded team, some people are going to look really good and some people are going to sit in the back seat, but those are the people who are meant to sit in the back seat, right? Like, not everybody on a soccer team can play striker and score all the goals. You know, there's only a couple of those on the team. But if you will go to those teams and they ask who's the second most important player or who's the most important player, a lot of them are going to point at the guys on the defense and the guys in the goal and, you know, the guys that make sure that the enemy team doesn't get into the game. You know, it's just like, that's true in every esport. When you have a team esport anyways, it's like some of those guys are not responsible for going 3-for-1 every round. Some of them are just responsible of always going 1-for-1 to make sure that you've got time to rotate, to get your sight flood off, or to make sure that you're able to, you know, properly entry or whatever, right? You know, they're playing a more sacrificial role, but they're still a star in terms of what they bring to the table.
Oh no, I 100% agree. I think we'll have to see what stars that weren't in VCT this last year too much kind of show up this next season. I mean, obviously, for the longest time, Ye was the best player in Valorant, period. And, you know, we went a whole season without seeing him perform or play. Or, I mean, obviously he had his time with Disguised, but we're talking about the upper echelon of gaming here. And we'll see what happens. You know, some notable names for me are, obviously, I've had my time with Baby Bay and with Corey as well. We'll see what happens with them. TSM, FaZe up in the air. A couple members of Shopify Rebellion also dropping out. There's a lot of things happening here with Valorant as a whole. So I'm pretty excited to see what these orgs have cooking up in the lab. You know, what are they gonna really decide? I'm not 100% sure. It's hard to say, but a lot of good names out there, a lot of good names on the move, and you know. E.g., do they run it back? I don't know. Well, apparently, back-to-back World Championships is hard, rightfully so.
Yeah, apparently it is hard. In fact, it's a feat that not many people have accomplished in their careers. In any esport, to be honest, people still talk about a Dota 2 roster that managed to pull it off. And it's been years since that happened. You know, because it is super difficult. You have to stay ahead of the curve for a whole year, you know, and when you bring in something new, you get new ideas, you get new conversations, you get new looks at the game, and you get a new understanding, and sometimes that sets you back a little bit, but if it's the right player, the right coach, or whatever, then what you'll get is one step back, 5 steps forward. And so a lot of teams, I think, rely on that to a large margin so that they you know, are continuously innovating and staying fresh, and people aren't catching up to them. But I think DRX is one example, has proved that if you keep with the same and you have the right mindset, then, you know, you can continue to grow and improve. It just gets that much harder when you're at the top, you know, because there's nobody to study, there's nobody to look at. You have to forge ahead on your own. And you've blazed the trail. Everybody else is going to be moving faster because they've got a nice paved path right to the top. They know what it looks like. They know what to do. And you're out there whacking weeds, fighting through brush in the jungle, trying to figure out, you know, am I about to run into a tiger that's going to eat me, or am I actually almost at the Forbidden Temple of Sacred Knowledge kind of deal? It's
Forbidden Temple.
That's how it feels like, you know. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting. I think that EG will probably stay together as a roster. You know, they seem to get along really, really well, and that's generally a good sign. I think teams like Team Liquid and players in esports like Flash and, well, I mean, any 1v1 esport, to be honest, you know, it shows that you can continue to stay at the top and you can continue to innovate as the best if you just stick it out through the rough patches. A lot of people look to change to fix problems, but they would rather just change their circumstances rather than, you know, change on an individual and a personal level.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time for sure, and we'll have to keep you guys posted with everything that we gather in the future, and let us know what kind of roster moves you're thinking about, or excited for, or theorizing, or playtesting with in your own brain in the comments. Let us know what you're thinking. Obviously, if it was up to me, I'd be getting signed by Sentinels too, but we'll have to see if Ospas can do that instead of me, because I'm trash and silver. So.
Yeah, I don't know if he would be able to pull it off over you. It's tough competition there,
Come
bro.
On. Well, guys, I think that's going to wrap up our first episode of Defuse and Discuss. Thanks for joining us and trying to cover up this Rostermania, and we're looking forward to another show next week, and we're really excited. I want to thank Jeff for joining with me on this venture and helping me get this all set up. And, our DMs are open. If you guys want to see some new content or something different, feel free to let us know. We're more than open to hear. But cheers.